very common presenting complaint that most of us will have at some point in our lives is, drum roll please. Can I tap table now?
No.
Headaches.
Thank you.
Headaches, right?
Headache.
So, super common. Indy, you've had headache before?
Many times.
Many times. Okay. What's your normal approach? You get the headache. What do? Tell me.
Tell the person to stop giving me a headache.
Oi, Sanj, can you stop nagging me,
Actually,
please?
it isn't her.
Oh,
It's actually not her.
this
It's
is Indy.
normally my.
It's never
It's normally.
Sanj is perfect. She could never do anything to make me a headache.
You know what? It's actually not her. It's normally my manager at work or someone at work is giving me a headache, or
Right, right.
it's my family who like are trying to grab a hold of me in the worst possible time. Ever had that where like someone's trying to get a hold of you and they keep trying to ask you to do shit and you're like,
Right.
I physically can't do this. I'm busy. Leave me alone. Yeah.
I'm thinking about that clip you showed me about universal remote fixing electronic devices for your family. Do you
Thank
remember that
you.
clip you showed me?
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
YouTube, isn't it?
Yes.
YouTube.
Ronnie Chung. Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
That's it.
Ronnie
That's it.
Chung. Yeah.
Like that. All right,
Yes.
cool, fine. So you've done that. You're trying to remove the stressor, let's say. Then what do you do? You've got a headache. What are you doing?
Pop a paracetamol, man. Drink some water.
Okay, okay, good. So this is one thing I actually do advocate. Now, it's not that as doctors we advocate that people should get addicted to painkillers, right? But the appropriate use of analgesia, simple, what we call simple over-the-counter analgesics, paracetamol, ibuprofen, recommend. Somebody comes to hospital. I'm in pain. Have you taken painkillers? No. Why haven't you taken painkillers? Because I don't want to mask the pain. I'm like, bro, you come here. I'm going to give you the same thing. The first thing I'm going to ask you is, do you want a painkiller? Right? And then we can try and work out what's causing it. But use simple painkillers, right? If you can. So paracetamol. Now, are you a one tablet guy or two tablet guy?
Oh, gotta be double strength, man. Let's go.
Really? Exactly, man. Like, again, some people in my family are like, no.
If you're allowed
I
eight
can...
of those things a day,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm only having
Two.
one dose out of four
Yeah.
times a day.
You're fine.
What dose? I count it
Yeah.
as like an intake, like a
Yeah.
mouthful, like a
One
scoop in the mouth.
taking,
Yeah,
one surful. Yeah.
yeah.
It's
Then give me
fine.
two, man. Let's go.
Exactly, man. But some people in my family are like, no. I don't want to get used to it. I'll take one tablet. And then if my headache's still there, I'll take another tablet. I'm like, just take two. Take a proper dose. And that'll be the end of it. Okay. And then we can up titrate properly. Take
Does
them
one tablet
take them
actually do anything? Or,
It
I
might, like,
reckon
look,
a one tablet thing is like placebo. That's it.
I think for some people it's fine. It probably does do the job. But, I'm the same as you. I take 1 gram, 2 paracetamol tablets. Fine. Then what do you do? So you're taking some painkillers. Then what do you do?
Try and go to sleep, man.
Okay. So yours is a type of headache which gets helped by sleep, improves with sleep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if possible.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Good. Look, you're doing all the right things, man. Are you tired? So do you need sleep? Are you hydrated? Drink some water. Take a painkiller, right? And have you got any other kind of symptoms that would suggest the cause of the headache? The problem with headaches, much like chest pain, which I've told you guys about before, is there are hundreds of different causes for headaches. Okay. And like with most conditions, there is shit that we worry about, like some really sinister stuff. And then there's really benign stuff that's annoying, painful, but it's not going to kill you. Headaches are much like that as well. The commonest
Yeah.
causes of those kind of what we call benign headaches are what we call a migraine. So everyone talks about, I've got a migraine. It's a word that we use all the time. But an actual migraine is very different to what people say, I've got a migraine.
Yeah.
Because when someone says to me, patients,
Yeah,
do you get headaches? Go on. You've seen?
I've seen Sanj have a migraine, and her
Describe
migraines are
it to me.
bad.
Describe it.
Like, she needs to go to sleep. She can't stand up. She's in that much pain. That's a migraine. And I'm
That's a
like,
migraine.
You win. Right?
Yeah, well, you win. Yeah. And remember, team.
You win. Me and my
Sanj-
shitty little headache, right? You win. Okay.
Sanj does not get unwell very often. So when she does, she goes 0 to 100,
doesn't.
man. Yeah,
She-
like on holiday.
she means
0
it,
to
man.
100.
She means it.
Food poisoning. Yeah.
Yeah.
So migraine, we might as well start talking about migraines. So migraines, guys, are generally a unilateral headache. They'll affect one side. They tend to be centered around your eye. People say it feels like there's pressure behind my eye or it's behind my eye. You get sensitivity to light, sound. So the best thing is a quiet, dark room. You can get some involvement with the eye as well. Might go a bit red, might get what we call that's called injection. You might get a bit of lacrimations, see tears coming out of it as well. But generally one-sided headache, but really bad, right? And but a lot of people, there tends to be a food trigger. So cheese and chocolate are common things that can set off migraines in people. But again, migraine is not a life-threatening headache. Very common, very painful. The other common ones, especially for office workers, are what we call tension headaches. So people say it feels like a band. A band is squeezing my head and it's kind of like here. That's to do with bad posture. So you're getting it because the wrong muscles are being used. Indy's got a question. What's your question?
Yeah, you get that pain from having a bug too tight as well. But yeah, carry on.
Yes. Yeah, no, yeah. That's just direct pressure, man. That's like... It's especially when you're growing up and say if you're getting your bug tied by somebody else. So when you tie a bug on yourself, you can kind of calibrate pressure. But when someone else is tying it, they kitchika, right? And they do it really tight, and then you're just like, I'm fine. I had it once when I was really young, where someone tied a bug on me, and then I actually ended up vomiting at the Gurdwara in the bathroom. Now this is before I was like, God. Right? So this is before I was a doctor, and so I just took the bug off anyway, and then obviously the pressure went away. So that is one of the signs of. So if you have, let's say somebody falls over and smacks their head on a concrete, right? And they get bleeding inside their brain. If there's a special type of bleeding, which is called extradural, where the blood has nowhere to go because on one side you've got the skull, it starts going the other way. It starts compressing your brain. If that starts to happen, one of the symptoms is vomiting, right? So that bug-tight situation was basically mimicking that. It was so tight that it was then caused me to vomit. So yeah, I know exactly what you mean. So that's called a tension headache. Again, very common, not life-threatening, right? Now, on the other end of the spectrum, you have what everyone thinks they have when they come in with a headache, brain tumor, okay? Or what we call a space-occupying lesion, something growing in your head that shouldn't be in there. And when it presses on things it shouldn't press on, you can get a headache. So that's one.
Everyone thinks they have a brain tumor.
Yeah. Again, bloody WebMD, man. They read something. Like, oh, could it be a brain tumor? Could it be a brain tumor? And it's like, okay, I need to kind of like, bring you down a level. And then the other kind of things are kind of, bleeds in the brain. Those are obviously very, very serious, and we get concerned about that. So I had a lady who was... sort of in her 60s, 70s, and she was on her iPad the day before, maybe 11 p.m., had what we call a sudden onset headache. So not like a gradual creep up on you, like bang, it's not there, and then it's there. And that's also very important when it comes to any symptoms, really. Like, if we're talking about shortness of breath, chest pain, headache, is this something that started gradually, or is it like bang, sudden, right? And she tried taking painkillers and had a really rough night, couldn't really sleep properly, and came in the next day. So I'm seeing this lady and I'm like, okay. Again, the number of things that can be causing a headache. And here's where I got a bit, not spooked. Oh, what's the right word? Here's where I got concerned. So I was doing her neurological examination. As part of that, there's a test called the finger-nose test, right? So this is a test of coordination. So the back part of your brain is called the cerebellum. Okay, the cerebellum has a lot to do with coordination. So for example, Indy, if you close your eyes right now on the podcast and I got you to raise your arm in the air, even though your eyes are closed, you know exactly where your arms are in time and space. You just know, right? And if you open your eyes now, your hands haven't changed position. Okay, as in they're just there. There is a condition called pseudoacidosis where what you do is you get the patients to put their hands out, you ask them to close their eyes, and actually their hands start moving up, and then they open their eyes and realize they're up, and they put them down. But when they're closing their eyes, they have no feedback. There's no feedback coming to the cerebellum to tell them where their hands are in time and space, so they start moving. These are things we take for granted, right? So anyway, this back part of the brain, the cerebellum, one of the tests we do is what we call the finger-nose test. So what I will do, actually you could help me on this. So Indy, if you put your finger on, take your right index finger and place it on the tip of your nose. Yeah, and place it on the tip of your nose. So that's what I've done there is I've actually given you a command to see if you can understand the command. That's a secondary test I'm doing, but you've done that correctly. Then what I will say is I'll put my finger out and say, right now, can you touch your finger to the end of my finger? So you'll come forward with your finger. So move it forward, Indy. And you'll touch my finger back to your nose. Yeah, back to your nose. Go back to your nose now. Back to my finger. So go back to my finger and back to your nose. And keep doing that as quick as you can. Right, so then what I will do is I will change the depth. Yeah, exactly. And I'll change the depth to see, Are you hitting the point? Now, normally, a positive sign, you can stop 90. A positive sign is when people start missing. And this is called pass pointing. So their depth perception is off, which indicates there's a problem in the cerebellum. Otherwise, people can hit each point. It's fine. No issues, right? Here's what happened when I was doing this with this lady. My finger was here. She wasn't just missing. It was like a complete different direction. Oh, shit. Just hit the mic. That was bad, right? And then at this point, I'm like, I didn't hit the table, hit the mic just once. And then I was like, can you see my fingers? You know, like when a doctor says that, can you see my fingers? You're like, oh shit, right? So then I get to start counting fingers. How many fingers? She gets it wrong. And I'm like, oh shit. Okay, there's something going on here. Anyway, we proceed to do a CT scan. So CT scan is the quickest form of a scan. So you'll be aware there's what we call CTs and MRIs. Think of like an MRI like 4K, think of a CT like full HD, but the MRI takes a lot longer, not as many scanners. CT is looking for big things, yeah? So we don't miss it, it's quick and we can get the big things. So her scan comes back and there's a massive bleed in the brain. That's the cause of the headache, right? And it's pressing on areas of the brain. So at the back is what we have, what we call the, I've told you about cerebellum, but just in front of that, you have what we call the occipital lobe, which is all to do with vision, okay? And so the reason why she's not seeing well is because that's been affected, because the bleeding is now pressing on that site. So this lady, her blood pressure was also very high, okay? So when I I then had to speak to our regional center, which is the Queen Elizabeth, to speak to what we call the neurosurgeons, so people who operate on the brain. And the basic question I'm asking is, somebody's got a bleed in the brain, do you need to do a neurosurgical operation? For example, make a hole in the skull and drain some of the blood. That kind of level of operation, okay? They're like, okay, we'll get back to you. We're looking at the images. So the images are linked to them, so they start having a look at it. And they're asking, how is the patient? So, the patient, obviously, the vision's affected, but she can still understand me. She's speaking fine. She's got full control of her arms and legs, okay? But it's likely she's had what we call a hemorrhagic stroke. So there's two types of stroke. One type of stroke is where you have a blockage. Blood supply can't get somewhere. Because the blood supply can't get somewhere, everything after that then dies. That's a stroke. So death of brain tissue because of blockage is what we call a ischemic stroke, blockage-based stroke. Or you have a hemorrhagic stroke, which is bleeding, too much bleeding everywhere. And this has probably happened because the blood pressure was too high. She has undiagnosed hypertension. Now, obviously, we've covered blood pressure in the past and why it's so important. Now, like I said, so generally, uncontrolled high blood pressure for long periods of time will lead to things over time, like heart attacks and strokes. This is an example of it. Now, although it's probably been high for a while, but it's not been tested. She's not had a reason. She's probably not had any symptoms, but it's super high. And this was the effect. So somebody had a bleed in the brain because of such a high blood pressure. So now I don't tell people this.
Was she all right?
Yeah, she was okay. So I don't tell this to people to scare them. And obviously not every headache is going to be this. But like with any medical condition, it's all about the context, right? So the thing that concerned me was the headache was disproportionate. She's not a patient. She had very few medical conditions. She's not somebody who presents to hospital. She's not like the boy who cried wolf who comes in every week with a different symptom, right? She'd taken a good amount of analgesia. That was the other thing, right? So she'd taken like the 1 gram of paracetamol 4 times a day. She'd taken ibuprofen regularly. So she's maxed out on simple analgesias, and that's not touching it, right? And then the red flag was really, you're missing my finger by miles. I was like, there is something going on here. Yeah. So headaches, just to summarize, there are worrying headaches and there are simple headaches. Okay. The things we worry about when it comes to headaches is if you have a headache that's causing a loss of power in your arms or legs, change in your vision, vomiting. When you walk, it feels like you're drunk and staggering around. That's what cause for concern. Yeah. That's when we really want to see you. Migraine is an overused word. So if somebody says to me they've got a migraine, I will say, have you formally been diagnosed with a migraine? Because if you have, you'll be on something to stop the migraines happening, a prophylactic. And also you'll have something for when the actual migraine starts to help you manage that situation. Any questions, Indy?
Whew. No, that's a lot, man. That's very informative.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's so many nuances to a headache.
Well, being a doctor, mate. Being a doctor. You think it's easy? You think Dr. Jazz just goes there and goes, "Hi, I'm Dr. Jazz. Yeah, I've got a podcast, so I'm gonna tell you a few things and then I'll impress Indy." No, mate. No, mate. Go every day. Life on the line. Got to use my brain continuously. Got to problem solve. That's what being a doctor is. And they have to deal with your shit. Don't bang on the table, mate. Don't bang on the table. It distorts the audio.
It's not fucking me saying it. It's the guest saying it.
It's the guest saying it. You're saying it. Riz is saying it. Everybody's
saying it.
Everyone's saying it. Oh, man.
I love how you'll listen to a stranger, but you won't fucking listen to me or the editor. All right, thank you.